Hello, I hope you guys are all having a really good day. My name is Gifford, and I just wanted to share a little bit of my pregnancy experience in this video, just to kind of give you guys a little idea of maybe what you can expect, how to prepare, especially if you are having a pregnancy of a special needs baby. This can kind of maybe give you a little bit of a guide of what to expect. So I do have some notes written down, so don't mind me if I look down for a second. So I just wanted to start out by saying that just like any other pregnancy, I had a lot of ups and downs. Every pregnancy is different, but I think, for me, this pregnancy, there was a lot of difficulties, but there obviously was a lot of great things as well. Being pregnant is a beautiful thing, and the fact that God gave women the ability to create life inside of them, I think is absolutely amazing and beautiful, and I'm so honored that I'm able to conceive. I really am so blessed. I know so many people struggle with that, and thankfully for me it was very easy, and I'm able to do that, and I'm completely honored and blessed by that. But just because it is a blessing doesn't mean that there aren't hardships along the way. So I did kind of want to share that as well. So I do just kind of want to talk about a couple of funny things that happened. I knew I was pregnant before I had a positive pregnancy test. I found out super early. I took my test, I think when I was like 2 or 3 weeks pregnant, and I really just had a feeling that I just knew that I could just tell, my husband could tell, we both just knew. And when I took the test, I was not shocked at all. I really can't specify any symptoms that I felt. I know that there were some because we would talk about it, and he would be like, oh, like this happened, do you think you're pregnant? And I was like, I don't know, maybe. And there were definitely symptoms and signs, but I honestly cannot recall them. It was almost a year ago now, so I just don't remember them, and I didn't record them or anything. But other than that, it was really just a feeling. The other thing is, once I got a positive test, I was convinced in my mind that I was having a girl. I just knew. I just felt it in my gut. I knew it in my heart, in my head. I just knew it was a girl. The whole time I referred to her as a she, as a her. Very rarely did I say it or him. I just knew it was a girl, and it was. I was right. So I don't know if that was just me really wanting a girl, and that's why I thought it was a girl, or if there's some type of mother's intuition there. I'm not sure, but that was just my experience. I had some crazy pregnancy symptoms, y'all. Literally read the list of oh, when you're pregnant, this might happen, this might happen, this might happen. I was like, yup, they all happened to me. I dealt with all of it. And it was really nuts because after I told my mom that I was pregnant, she was like, oh, it'll be so easy for you. I never got morning sickness. It was so easy for me. To be honest, with my third pregnancy, I didn't even know I was pregnant until 5 months in, because I literally just had no symptoms, and I kept getting negative tests, and I was like, are you serious? Because literally the next day I had bad morning sickness from week 5 to week 13. I was throwing up every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. I was nauseous morning, afternoon, sometimes evening. Usually it cleared up by the end of the day, but I was sick the whole day practically. I didn't even usually eat until 1 or 2 p.m. because it was just, I would throw it up immediately. So I had bad morning sickness, bad nausea. It did definitely clear up during the second trimester, but when I was in the second trimester, I had other things to deal with. So especially during the first trimester, I also had major fatigue, and I also had started to get headaches near the end, and they were really bad headaches. I don't really get headaches, but these were bad. Also, it was pretty warm at the end of my first trimester going into my second trimester, and if I got hot, I would immediately throw up. And especially if I was hot and in a car, that was it. One nice thing about my pregnancy was actually the COVID pandemic hit right when I got pregnant. Especially the quarantine and everything was right around the time that I got pregnant. So thankfully I didn't have to like go anywhere. I was still in school when I got pregnant, and I didn't actually have to go to school. Like school got canceled right after I got pregnant, or right around the time I got pregnant, I guess. So I never had to like go anywhere. I literally just stayed home all the time, and because the virus was going around and I was pregnant, I didn't want anything to happen, so I literally was like home all day, mostly in my room, mostly in my bed for like 2 months. It was a little intense. But then we actually moved to North Carolina, and it was just so hot. I really struggled to get outside at all, even just like, you know, to walk around my neighborhood or something. I did try, especially in the morning, but yeah, I couldn't deal with the heat. It was pretty bad. But also I had to go to all of my appointments alone in the beginning because of the COVID stuff, which was really hard. I was really nervous, and I really wanted my husband to be with me, but also like he couldn't see the ultrasounds, he couldn't hear the baby's heartbeat. I was able to get some recordings, but it's definitely not the same, and I really just would have appreciated having him there with me. So that was definitely one of the hardest things. I had 3 different gynecologists or obstetricianists or whatever they're called throughout my pregnancy, which was really annoying because none of them really had the full picture of my pregnancy. So I had the one in Alabama for a couple months, and then right at the beginning of my second trimester I switched to one up here in North Carolina, and then when I got my daughter got diagnosed with Down syndrome, we switched to a different OB that was more used to dealing with kids with special needs and high-risk pregnancies, and we wanted to be able to deliver at a tertiary hospital that had like a NICU and those types of things. So we switched again, and when I went to that office, there were multiple different doctors, and like I never knew which one I was gonna see. So it's not like I had one doctor. It was like I just went to the clinic or the office and I just saw whoever was available. So that was kind of frustrating. Also, even though I saw like 5 different doctors there, none of them were actually the ones to deliver my baby. I don't know if the doctors at the office actually do deliver babies. If they do, they didn't deliver mine. So that was kind of weird for me, but it all turned out okay in the end. So I don't know who I would end up going to for my next pregnancy. I didn't love the people that I saw when I first came to North Carolina, but I don't know. The other people are really, really far away, like an hour away, so I don't know. We'll have to see. But that was definitely one thing that was not ideal. So yeah, I just wrote down that the second trimester was a lot better than the first. I got my energy back, I got my appetite back. I wasn't as nauseous, and even when I was nauseous, I wasn't really throwing up as much. But the hard thing was that it got really, really hot in my second trimester, so this was like the hardest time for me to be like going anywhere except my house. So like once I started to feel well enough to get outside my house, the heat kept me from leaving. But yeah, so with the appetite change also came some weird cravings, and people would always ask me like, are you eating weird things? Do you have weird cravings? And I was like, no, not really, because I didn't eat weird things. I just ate things that were weird for me. Like, I'm not a huge fan of cheese. Like, I love cheese. I love cheese on sandwiches, on salads, on soups, whatever. I love cheese, but I won't really eat it by itself. And when I was pregnant, one of the things I craved often was plain cheese, usually Colby Jack, but that's like one thing that I craved, and I was just like, that's really weird because I'm not really like a huge cheese eating person. Other things I craved a lot of fruit during my pregnancy, a lot of fruit and a lot of bread. That's mainly what I ate, like basically carbs. That is basically what my cravings were like. The third trimester, it got hard. I kind of almost reverted back to the first trimester. I was often nauseous. I didn't ever throw up, thank goodness, but I was often nauseous. I was really uncomfortable. I was really, really large. I don't really weigh myself that often, but if I had to guess, I was at a pretty typical weight for myself before I got pregnant, and I used to weigh myself really often. So I would say I was probably around 145 pounds probably when I first got pregnant, Although I definitely was a little bit smaller than I normally am, so it wouldn't be terrible to assume that I was actually like 140, but we're just gonna say with 145. Literally by the end of my pregnancy, I was probably about 210 pounds. So I gained 60 to 70 pounds, which is like twice as much as you're supposed to gain. And I don't even know how, because literally I never ate my first trimester. I ate like one meal a day. I threw up constantly. My second trimester, all I ate was fruit and cheese, and I definitely wasn't really eating that much more than I normally would. And in my third trimester, it was kind of the same thing. In fact, I have a really bad sweet tooth, but in my first trimester, I never wanted sweets. Like, my husband would be like, do you want ice cream? And I was like, no, not really. Like, let's just go home. No ice cream for me. Like, I just really wasn't craving sweets, which is different for me. And so in my third trimester, I started to have, like, it got colder. It was like winter time. And I started to have a lot of like hot chocolate every night, and like it wasn't like that Swiss Miss. It was like my husband made good hot chocolate with sugar and cocoa and chocolate chips, and it was amazing. And I drank it like every single day. And so I don't know if that's like why, but I feel like I started my rapid weight gain way back in my first trimester, so I'm not really sure where that came from. Yeah, I don't feel like I was living an unhealthy lifestyle. I would go on like 20-minute to 30-minute walks every day in my first trimester practically, and I continued to go on walks almost every day throughout my second trimester, and even into my third trimester I was going on walks at least a few times a week. But other than my designated walk, I was almost always sitting either in my bed or on the couch. So I don't know if that had something to do with it, that I was just very stationary throughout my pregnancy. It probably did have a lot to do with it, but again, like, I just was feeling so bad, and I didn't really get the chance to like do much during my pregnancy, because I was either super nauseous, it was super hot, or I was like super large and uncomfortable, and like it was just an ordeal to like go anywhere. So I don't know what necessarily attributed to that, but it definitely made it hard to sleep because I was really large, and it made it really hard to kind of move around quite a lot. Just a few more things I want to touch on. Emotionally, pregnancy was really hard for me. I was very emotional just at everything. Like, I'm not a huge crier, but I would cry over like kind of small things, and a lot of like hard stuff was going on aside from like moving and like the stress of that, and like, you know, moving away from my friends and my family, and you know, the COVID thing. You know, other than all of that, there was just like one of my grandparents was really in and out of the hospital a lot. Another one was diagnosed with cancer. There's a lot of stuff was going on during my pregnancy, so I don't know if that was also just like everything going on. And obviously I was very emotional about her diagnosis at first. For a few weeks I was like a mess, and like I didn't really want to like see anyone or talk to anyone. I never called my parents. I kind of was like in a little bit of a depression for a little bit. Like, it was a really, really hard time for me. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sit around and just, you know, cope with my emotions. But it got a lot better very, very quickly, which I'm so thankful about, because like knowing her now and having her now, like, I know that there's no reason to be upset like that. So because she just brings so much joy and happiness to my life. But it was hard in the moment, and you know, that's a pretty normal response. But you know, there was just a lot going on for me emotionally, and I can definitely talk more about how I told my family, what their responses were, how I kind of worked through it. I can definitely talk about that in a different video, but for the sake of time, I'm gonna leave that for another time. The kind of the last thing I wanted to touch on was that you know, I had a lot of extra appointments. We had a lot of extra ultrasounds. I probably had a total of like 8 to 10 ultrasounds. I don't know, I may be exaggerating that, but I had quite a few, whereas most women I think only have like 3 or so. But I definitely had a lot of ultrasounds, and I also had an ST like every other week for like 10 weeks. And what an ST is a non-stress test, and it's not invasive, and they just hook little monitors up to your belly to monitor movements and the heart rate of the baby. And we really didn't have a lot of issues with that. We did actually have a couple crazy instances, and that's kind of a story for a different time as well. But overall, we didn't really have any issues with her. She was very active. She moved a lot during my pregnancy. Her heart rate was usually good. It was really crazy because when I was actually in labor, her heart rate dropped a few times and my heart rate was very high. Again, I want to do a separate video on my labor experience. I have a lot to talk about with this pregnancy. So by the way, just if you want to hear more about my pregnancy and my experience as a pregnant woman and as a mother, my postpartum experiences, definitely subscribe, because those videos are coming. But yeah, off of my tangent, I want to do a video on my labor story, but just like very briefly, I basically a couple times had like interventions where like I felt like the whole hospital staff was in my room checking on me, changing my position, trying to get the baby to kind of, like if the umbilical cord was smushed or something, like they were trying to move her around so that she could be able to get the oxygen that she needed and her heart rate could go back up. And this happened, I think, 3 times. And the first time, like, I just moved a position a couple times and it was fine. The second time was a little bit harder, and they ended up like having to get me like on my arms, and I had just gotten an epidural and like I was dead to the world. It was like the middle of the night. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning. I like had my butt up in the air. I was on my elbows and I was just like hanging there. And then she was okay, and after a few minutes they flipped me back around. And then the last time was at like 8 or 8:30 in the morning, and I guess probably close to 8. And they came in, they woke me up. Her heart rate was dangerously low and mine was pretty high, and they kept changing my position and they could not get me to lower my heart rate. They couldn't get her heart rate back up, so they decided to rush me to an emergency C-section. But as they were like pushing me, a doctor was like checking my dilation and was like, she's complete, like she's fully dilated. When we get there, let's try to get her to push. So I was like there, and they were like increasing my epidural amount to like get me fully numbed to prep me for a C-section. And like I had the anesthesiologist was like pricking me with a little needle, like, can you feel that? Can you feel this? What about this? What about that? And like 20 different times she did that. And as that was happening, I was also like legs in the strips pushing. So they were like prepping me for C-section while I was trying to give a vaginal delivery. It was kind of an insane time, but thankfully I did not have to have an emergency C-section. I was able to deliver a healthy baby vaginally, which is exactly what I wanted, and I'm so thankful for that. That's basically what I wanted to talk about and what I wanted to touch on. If you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments. Like I said, I want to make a bunch more videos on my pregnancy experience, my labor experience, what I wished, things were like, how I wish things were different, what I plan to do for my future pregnancies. Definitely leave any questions that you have, and I would be happy to answer them. I kind of just wanted to say that if you're a mom and your baby just got a diagnosis that he or she is going to have Down syndrome, what I want you to take from this is like, every pregnancy is different, right? This was my personal pregnancy experience, and it wasn't super positive. By the end of it, I was just ready to not be pregnant anymore. Even by the middle of it, honestly, I just did not really enjoy the experience. But that was just me. That's how my body handles pregnancies. I get stretch marks, I get nausea. I had a hard time. That had nothing to do with her having Down syndrome. The only difference of my pregnancy to anyone else's, other than just the fact that everyone is different and has different pregnancies, and even one person may have very different experiences, other than those types of differences, nothing else was different in my pregnancy. Like, it was very normal. The only thing was I had extra appointments. I had extra ultrasounds so they could monitor her heart and her growth and her different things, like her kidneys, intestines, all of that. And that's one thing that was different, and also the NSTs that I had. And really, that's it. Like, extra appointments. It's not like you get sick. It's not like your baby is constantly in distress. There are a few differences, like your baby actually does have a higher chance of stillbirth or miscarriage, but you know, that's why the doctors are monitoring constantly. As far as you know, there's really no difference. You can't tell that your baby is different. A lot of women give birth and don't even realize that their baby had Down syndrome until the end, because it was just a normal pregnancy. So just keep that in mind if you're worried or stressed about how this is going to affect you and your pregnancy and the rest of your life. Just remember, it's really not going to be different. And as far as like the future, like postpartum, newborn, and developmentally, I would love to continue to make videos about that as well. So if you are a mama of a baby with Down syndrome, please subscribe, because I definitely want to build this community and share with you guys my experiences, what I've done for Rosalia, you know, how I've helped her, you know, what she's like developmentally, just so that you know you're not alone. You can learn different things to help her. I was an occupational therapy major, so I do have a little bit of background on how to best help our babies developmentally. I've taken classes on childhood development, and although I'm no better than you are to be a mother to your child, I do have a little bit of insight that may clear things up for you or help you in some way or another. So, you know, again, it doesn't make me any more qualified. I was just as scared and upset as you were when you found out. There is no perfect parent, and I've never even been a practicing occupational therapist, so you know, there are people who are far beyond what I could do. Yeah, if you're looking for any sense of community or advice or tips or just anything like that, go ahead and subscribe. And I hope this video was helpful to mamas of babies with Down syndrome, or just mamas in general. So thank you so much for watching. I love being able to share this with you guys, and I hope to continue to be able to do so. So thank you so much for supporting me and for watching, and I hope you guys all have a great day.